Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, criminal court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. And if you have a story to tell me, you can contact me there as well at dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. Also, please go to my YouTube channel, Slam the Gavel, and please like and subscribe. I'm happy to have a return guest on. I have Stephen Wade from the UK. He's a family law specialist, and the last time he was on was season 2, episode 92, and season 3, episode 58, where he spoke out on how to counter false allegations and how to succeed. And so we're back on to talk about, how his clients handle these silver bullet, which is what we call them over here in the US, these silver bullet false accusations. So, what do you do over there when you have a client come to you and they don't know what to do with being falsely accused?
Okay, well, it's natural to want to rebut allegations made against you. People have got an innate sense of right and wrong. And when they hear something about themselves that isn't correct, isn't right, or isn't fair, it's natural to be able to want to put your side of the story across. There's a problem with that, however, if you're going through the family court. And the problem is this: typically, the scenario, and it tends to be dads that make the applications for contact with their children. Dad will put an application in, and there will be allegations of abuse made against him. And I think those allegations for abuse, I don't think it's particularly calculating, to be honest. To be honest, people have to make an allegation of abuse to deny contact between a child and a parent. One of the questions, it's a bit of a hypothetical, so a bit of a, what's the word? Bit of a, get the word in a moment. It's a bit of a rhetorical question,
Mhm.
is that asking someone, what is your legal basis for preventing the relationship with a child and a parent? And the answer to that is without a court order, there is no legal basis for stopping a relationship between a parent who has parental responsibility and a child. Apart from safeguarding concerns, if there are safeguarding concerns, you need to get things into court as quickly as possible. So instantly, people have got a reason to make allegations of abuse. And like I say, it's natural to believe that need to get your voice heard and you want to rebut the allegations and you want to demonstrate that the ex is lying.
Mhm.
There's a problem, however. The courts are very, very time pressured. In this country, for example, a first hearing is typically around about 30 minutes. It can be an hour. And look at it at the perspective of a parent that wants contact with a child. They've got a choice. They can spend the time servicing their ex's allegations and rebutting the allegations one by one, or they can spend their time talking about why contact is in the best interest of their child. If you're the parent that doesn't want your ex to see the kids, you'll happily talk about the allegations you've made till the cows come home, and you'll throw a few more allegations in for good luck. So the piece of advice I always give to people, and it goes against their instincts, is that when they're faced with allegations, is to say didn't happen and then move on. Didn't
Mhm.
happen, and then talk about why contact's in the best interest of their child. Just rebut the allegations. You do not need to explain your side of things. All you need to do is to say it didn't happen and move on. Now, the court has a number of options. I know that judges know that people lie to them on a daily basis, but what can they do about it? I know people will often say, well, they can punish people for lying, but we'll come into that later.
Mhm.
So the option is that the has a number of options. First, we can ignore them, and it does happen. I see allegations, and the judge simply doesn't entertain them.
Mhm.
One of the other things that a judge can do is a judge can ask the accused is the wrong word because that's a criminal thing, ask the person that's been accused of the allegations how they see things, and they can explain how they see things. A third option is a court can order a fact-finding hearing. And I don't know, do you have fact-finding hearings or finding the facts in the US?
At this point, I don't know anymore.
No, okay. Well, it's basically a trial. What will typically happen is people will come up with a whole raft of allegations, and the
Mhm.
judge will say, right, okay, we need specific allegations. I'm allowing maybe 6, 8, 10, 12, and they produce basically a big table, no, a piece of paper where they list the allegations, when it happens, and the person who's accused gets to put their side across, and then the court will decide which of these allegations is going to be tested in a trial. And then what will happen then is there'll be a 4 day trial. It's usually a full day, or it can be 2 days or even 3 days, where they test the allegations. Even then, the person who's accused is on the back foot, because if they've made an application for contact, a fact-finding hearing will instantly kick things into the long grass until the fact-finding hearing is concluded.
Mm.
They won't discuss contact at the end of a fact-finding hearing. They'll discuss what happens next. And what happens next will be in a subsequent hearing, which can be another 3 months down the line. So you can see that it's actually preloaded against a parent who's had allegations made against them. If I give you a timeline here in the UK, a parent that puts an application in, they can usually expect not to hear back from the court for around 2 weeks. That's in the north of England, by the way. No, I've got a colleague in the north of England. He said 2 weeks. Here in the southeast, where I'm based at the moment, it can be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It can be months. I do say to people, chase the court, get the hearing date, push things forward as quickly as much as you possible. Typically, a hearing date won't be listed for about another 3 months. So that's 3.5 months before you get into court for the first hearing. And if your allegations made against you, well, there's perhaps going to be nothing for another 3, 4 months. So you think about it, that's over half a year before you get anywhere. The court can order contact at a first hearing. That is possible. There's nothing to stop to do it. But I've heard judges say in any number of cases, well, if the primary carer, and that tends to be mum, does not agree to contact, contact won't take place. The judge will try and lean on mum to say, let contact take place, possibly in a contact centre, which is
Mm.
often paid for by dad, because typically, and look, it's a simple power dynamic thing here. You look at it like this: mum doesn't want contact, dad does. The judge says, I'm going to order contact in a contact centre. Mum says, I haven't got any money. And the judge says to dad, okay, are you willing to pay for it? Dad's hardly can say, well, I'll only have contact if mum pays her share, because instantly it puts dad on the back foot and makes him look like he's more interested in money than the best interest of the child. But yeah, allegations. It's a complete silver bullet. And
Mm.
as I know we were discussing before we started this, things get even worse once you introduce the criminal side of things into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, one thing I'm seeing with a number of my clients, and these are mainly male clients, I check the stats on this. 97% of people subject to this in the UK, well, I say UK, I think it's England and Wales. I don't think it applies to Scotland. Coercive control laws. Coercive control is a criminal offence in this country. It's things like controlling behaviour, and it can be all encompassing various parts of controlling the behaviour, emotional, financial, anything you can think of. It's actually a criminal offence, but it's actually feelings based, which is a bit of an anomaly, and there's a lot of people critical of it. The police are very patchy when it comes to the implementation of it. But typically, if a father is arrested for coercive control, and this can happen before he puts an application in for his children in the family courts,
Mm-hmm.
during, what can happen is he can be arrested and put under police bail, not to contact the mother of his children, or to go home. And that instantly puts him on the back foot. It can make it hard for him, especially if he's representing himself, to contact his ex-partner or her solicitor, because he's genuinely worried if he's breaking his bail conditions and he's going to be locked up again. He no longer has a home where he can house the children. And when it comes to a family court hearing, of course, the first thing that his ex-solicitor will do is to stand up and say, well, of course, Mr. Smith is under criminal investigation, and we should probably delay things until that's concluded. When
Mm-hmm.
someone is put on police bail in this country for coercive control, typically they're bailed for a period of 3 months. That they're rebailed after 3 months. It's very common for people to be rebailed, and they can be bailed for up to 12 months without any kind of resolution when it comes to criminal matters. So potentially a father can find himself on police bail for 12 months. It can be extended, by the way, after that, but it needs to be ordered by a magistrate. But it's a complete, as you said before, silver bullet that a father who's already reeling from not spending time with his children, uh, put an application in the family courts, costing him a fortune, is now cast into a criminal case that is parallel to the family law case he's already got running.
and I know these things happen to women too. And what I do notice is that sometimes other women start this on other women.
Absolutely. I mean, look, of course, no, it needs to be said that, when it comes to coercive control, it's entirely gender neutral. In fact, when it comes to the family courts, it's completely gender neutral, apart from one small detail. That small detail being that mothers automatically get parental responsibility for their children. Presumably, that's because it's hard to fake maternity for fake maternity rather than for paternity. As the old saying goes, that's no one's fault, not even the Romans.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's and yeah, women can do it against each other, and yeah, we see that all the time.
Yeah, it's really strange because I'm following this case where the mother made false allegations on her son-in-law and got the two kids taken away, and now she's raising those kids because she can't stand the son-in-law. So I always, when I was training nurses, I would say, look, if the mother-in-law hates you, run the other way. Give the ring back and run, run.
I mean, no, in this country, the way it works, in terms of family law, anyone can make an application for children. No, if you don't have parental responsibility for children, you have to seek the court's permission. A grandmother, especially an involved grandmother, is perfectly liberty to make an application, and there's a reasonable chance, if she's been involved in the child's life, that that her application will be admitted. When it
Mhm.
comes to the criminal side of things, uh, I think people often misunderstanding the role of the police. What the police do is the police are there to detect crimes. So if someone makes a complaint, they might not necessarily know what kind of criminal complaint they're making, but the police will speak to them and they will detect a crime. So they'll, if the police suspect that it might be coercive control, they'll ask the questions that they need to ask to see whether they think there's grounds for an arrest and
Mhm.
for questioning or charging. Like I say again, I don't know how it works in the US, but the police investigate it and then they pass it to the CPS, the Criminal Prosecution Service, and then what happens is then it can go to court. And if you think the family courts are slow, you should try the criminal courts.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, it's dumbfounding. No one would believe this until you go through it yourself.
No, absolutely. And I've spoken to, I don't know, it seems to be a bit of a role at the moment. Last few months, any number of people, and they've happened to be older men, and some of them, do I think perhaps they've perpetrated coercive control? Quite possibly. Others, most definitely not. But in a lot of the cases, it seems to be a real silver bullet. It's an absolute winner, absolute winner. False allegations are not punished either. No, no, the police have got the opportunity, have got the ability to prosecute false allegations. Things like wasting police time and perverting the course of justice. But the police won't do so. I think the rationale behind that, if you hear people that argue against that, the pushback is usually we don't like to do that because that discourages genuine victims to come forward. And I totally take that point, but it makes me wonder. I actually did a TikTok about it the other day, asking, so is it better that someone who's a perpetrator gets away with it, or someone that's innocent gets punished? What's the old saying? That it's better to let 10 guilty people go free than to put one innocent one in prison. Because if you're a victim of false allegations, well, what does that do to your view of the police and to the justice system? To you, the police are no longer people who are there on your side. They're people that can just arrest you for no reason at all or on the say so of someone else. And it can completely distort your view of the police, of the justice system, and it seems capricious and arbitrary. And it doesn't all go well for people going through the family courts because they'll look at the judge and they will think to themselves, fairness is not part of it here.
No, none of it is fair. In fact, over here we have Caden's Law, and I'm reading the AI overview. but it's aimed at enhancing child safety in custody cases. It has faced criticism for potential problems. Some concerns include overreach and restricting judicial discretion, the risk of turning abuse allegations into a weapon, and the potential for increased litigation. Additionally, some experts argue the law relies on flawed research, excludes necessary expertise, and may not adequately address parental alienation. So we got problems over here too.
Yeah, and that comes with another thing, that parental alienation. There are people, plenty of people, that still even deny the existence of parental alienation at all. And it's very, very patchy. In fact, actually, do you know what? I think there's been a recent change in this country. And I think the change, I'm trying to think of what it is about. It's about the way, I think it's guidance to CAFCAS, that's the Children and Family Court Advisory Service. That's the eyes and ears of the court. It's like think of social services, social workers that work for the court, where I think there's been guidance issued where they've actually given less credence to allegations of parental alienation. And it seems like a massive step back. And
Mhm.
of course, I see parents who will say it's parental alienation where it's just their bad behavior that's caused it. But is parental alienation a thing? I would say most definitely.
Oh, definitely. We have 20 million parents over here just in the United States alone that are alienated.
Yeah, I mean, was it that great book, Divorce Poison by Richard Rorschach? That's a really, really good book. And when you read about the outcomes for children and the statistics of it, hey, I'm a statistics guy. My previous background was in, in a corporate business is doing performance analysis. And I think the statistics are things like the average age that a child realizes that they were alienated is 26. Uh, uh, they tend to basically realize that the parents are alienating them, what they've done, and they're already estranged from the first parents, so they're estranged from both parents. And of course, they have problems forming relationships, problems with trust, educational, medical. There's no winners with parental alienation, no winners at all.
Right. Also, to follow up with that, Richard Warshak, Bob Hoffman wrote the book Negative Love Syndrome back in the 60s. I think it was 1967, chapter 9. I think it's page 76. And it basically talks about custodial interference, which is also another form of parental alienation.
Yeah, I mean,
So, I mean, not to jump into another podcast, but Richard Gardner did not coin this. This was going on long before Richard Gardner. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Richard Gardner. Aren't we
yeah,
all?
yeah. I think we're drifting from the whole thing about false allegations.
Right.
Just one last thing. And I always say to people, if you're being alienated from your children, if your children not seeing you for months, where do their views come from? They never want to see you. They don't come from a vacuum. Children don't wake up one day and say, "Do you know what? I never want to see my parent again." It doesn't happen. Of course,
Mhm.
there will be people that say there are lots of reasons for that, and I do test these arguments on TikTok, which I'm a little bit on the controversial side there. So it's really interesting. But yeah, we should probably move back to this thing about the false allegations and
Right.
the silver bullet thing. It's absolutely astounding. As you said before, unless you've gone through it, you're not going to experience it. And it's shocking how many people will instantly take a view on things without knowing any of the facts. Because let's face it, it turns into a smear campaign.
Right.
It's
Right.
not just inside court, but also outside court. And the phrase that, well, I don't want to use a swear word. The phrase that annoys me more than else is "there's no smoke without fire."
Yeah, there are people that will not look at two sides of the coin. There are people that knew me for, we'll say, 12 years, and they knew what kind of a person I was. But as soon as that false allegation came out about alleged emotional abuse,
Yeah.
they sided with the ex-husband.
Do you know, I think really this is where a mindset thing comes in. I've already touched on this when it comes to a practical way of dealing with it in court, as in to rebut allegations. But it's also worth pointing out and also worth remembering that if you've got someone that is happy to believe an allegation without seeing one side, it sounds a bit pat saying this. It says more about them than it does anything else. You know, no one's all good. Not many people. Not many. No one's all good. No one's all bad. It's usually shades of grey. No, everyone has a bad day. Everyone sometimes says and does things they shouldn't. It's what they call it situational abuse. That's what they call it. No, it's when perhaps when things are a bit fraught, especially towards the end of a relationship, people do and say things that perhaps they might regret, and it's not their finest hour. And if there's children involved, people will weaponize that sort of stuff. But I think the best really thing to understand is that most people are not villains in their own story. Most people, I don't think there's many evil people out there. I think there's a lot of people with funny ideas, but I don't think there's many evil people out there. I mean, I'd often say to people, I mean, obviously, when I'm helping dads, because what I was saying that most of my over half my clients are women at the moment. But if I'm helping dads and they'll say that my ex is a contact denier, I'll say, but think of it, she's not necessarily doing it, not probably doing it because she wants to punish you. She's doing it because she genuinely believes, perhaps misguidedly, that she's doing it in the best interest of the children.
Hmm.
There's not many, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done it. I'm an NLP practitioner. I don't know if you've ever heard of highest positive intentions, that most people do things for the best of reasons. Admittedly, sometimes what they're doing is a really awful way of doing it. Most people do it because it's generally something primal, like they want safety or protection or routine. So someone who denies contact, there's not many villains rubbing their hands together and saying, I'm going to stop you seeing the kids because I want to ruin your life. Most of the time, they genuinely believe that the children are coming to harm. It could be that they're being unrealistic and they're being unfair and they're being biased. But I think most people, I don't think they're villains.
Well, what I've been noticing over here is we have overzealous attorneys that enjoy creating the conflict to keep the case going, along with the judge that they are in collusion with. And they are feeding this litigant all these horror story scenarios that could happen. So then they get them on it as well. And it turns into, like you said, a huge smear campaign.
Do you know it's funny? I spend a lot of time on TikTok these days. Well, that's where I get a lot of my clients from.
Mm.
Got a lot of reach, and I follow a few US attorneys, family law attorneys, and my God, then they make the ones over here look like sharks. No, I don't think the level of aggression and pointiness would work over here in this country. I mean, maybe it's a British Reserve thing. Maybe I think in some ways we're probably worse here, but because everything's couched in nice language. But no, I can see that the stereotype of the savage American lawyer. No, isn't
Oh,
that? I mean, hey, my favorite TV program of all time, Better Call Saul, Saul Goodman. I see parallels with the way the courts work in the US and UK, just the way it functions. But the aggressive, it's just the US. It seems naked aggression with a lot of the thing, and it definitely seems to stoke it. And honestly, it's a winner takes all mentality.
right, right. And whoever calls out the accusation first wins. That's just how it's going to work. And or they are friends with the judge, or there's connections into that courthouse, or they're getting paid off.
Yeah, I mean,
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean that's what I was just going to say is this, as soon as that opposing attorney comes out, I don't understand why they get the first word in. If they're calling you guilty, they should have to prove it. The innocent party shouldn't have to prove, their innocence or that they're not guilty. I think that opposing attorney should say, we have evidence as of all of this stuff. And they're not doing it. They're just calling it out, and the judge just sits back and runs with it.
I mean, this is why that comes back to the advice I offered to the people I assist. That if you've an allegation against you, you just say it didn't happen, and you know what? It completely nullifies it. In a lot of times, I do say to people, if there is any grounding for what you've been accused of, then the best thing you can do is hold your hand up and say, I got it wrong. I've seen that happen as well, where someone has done or said something that's not helped their case, and I said to him, right, okay, we're going to have to play dead on this. I want you to hold your hand up, say, I did this, no excuse, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Here's the work I've done on it. And I've seen the judges accept it sometimes and said to the other side solicitor, well, what do you want me to do about it? No, he's literally admitted, no, he admitted everything because you think about it, the court spends a lot of time dealing with people that never did anything wrong.
Mhm.
So if you show insight, the court can order lots of things, the law being a blunt instrument. The court if someone shows insight, there's literally no way, there's nothing you can run with this. You know, if he if say opposing attorney said he was aggressive and he says, I was, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I've got no excuses, it can take the wind out of their sails. Now, of course, the attorney can keep on pushing for
Mhm.
more and more, I don't know, more and more investigation and more talk about it, but it kills it dead. I'm all about giving people the best opportunity to get the right result for their children. And a big part of that is delay, avoiding necessary delay. It's one of the things mentioned in the Children Act about avoiding delay where at all possible. So if we can sidestep delay, we absolutely will do that. So I say to my clients, if you have done something, admit it. You know, you're going to stand out a mile if you admit you've got something wrong. There's nothing wrong with admitting you've got something wrong. In fact, it's a bit of a superpower.
Right.
And
Oh, I agree. And I think the judge would appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, you just watch the other side because the other side's come out thinking that they're going to basically talk about this and they've got nowhere to go with it. What's that line? I don't know if you remember. There's an old television series, sci-fi series, Red Dwarf in this country, where one of the characters admits to it, and the other character says, "Don't think you can get away with it just by admitting it was all your fault." And it works. It's a powerful weapon. It is.
Well, there's so many people suffering and struggling under these false allegations, especially over here. For instance, I was under an indication of emotional child abuse, so I couldn't work around kids because I was a nurse. And I couldn't even work at a fabric store until I was cleared of these emotional child abuse indications. So I had to go through another CPS hearing that cost probably a $1,500 day. The transcript was $675 just to get it. And these transcripts were gold, but I was exonerated twice from back-to-back indications. And it just we've got this huge problem where people can just throw these out and they're not held responsible when the person is found innocent.
No, I mean, like I said, there's nothing to lose by making a false allegation. There's
Right.
everything to gain. If you've got what you want, and that will typically mean majority care of the children, there's very few disadvantages to making a false allegation. I mean, I can't think of a single situation where I've been in where an allegation has been dismissed, where there's ever been a penalty for someone. Not one. I mean, perhaps at most there'll be the whole very British and mild ticking off by the judge where they'll tell you that you shouldn't do that. You know, just wagging their finger at you. But that's the worst that comes of it. But the potential gain for someone making false allegations, well, the sky's the limit.
Right, right. And even though a parent is cleared, the judge will not put you back to 50-50 shared
No, no, no,
custody.
no. And I'm guessing that will be because the children have got used to an arrangement, a certain arrangement, and
Oh, these ones weren't. Mine were not. My boys wanted 50-50, and they were telling the judge this and telling the judge this. And my attorney did call me and he said, "Hey, the kids said they want to be with you." And I said, "Well, I just saw them this weekend. They said they want to be 50-50." He says, "Well, okay, whatever they want." I mean, he was willing to work with me and do his job and do whatever I'm asking him to do. So even though parents have to understand, at least over here in the United States, is a child will tell the judge what's going on and what they want, and the judge will twist and contort their story to fit their false narrative, which happened in my case.
yeah, I mean, the way it works over here, the court uses something called the welfare checklist. It's a section one of the Children Act, which is the law that concerns things like Yeah, concerns children. And wishes and feelings are one of seven factors. It's quite common for parents to say, my child wasn't listened to, but the court has six other factors that it needs to consider. And as you say, even if it was 50-50 before, there's the status quo argument. Something else in the checklist is the effect of change on a child. So, for example, if there was a 50-50 arrangement in place and that changes because there have been allegations of abuse and it takes 6 months, 9 months, a year to resolve. By the time you get to the end of it, you can guarantee that the person who's got got the arrangement they want, will say, "Well, the children are now settled, and
Oh,
it wouldn't be in their best interest to change it."
oh, that's
And
so sad.
the wider point as well is that you can sure as hell bet that a parent that has been faced with false allegations is going to be faced with the no smoke without fire argument. Because what's going to happen is the other side will report the fact that there was a fact finding hearing and there were allegations of abuse. They don't need to say, you don't need to say that they were proven. You just say there were allegations because it's own inference. And then there's the impact of a parent outside the court because they're dealing with more of that without smoke, no smoke without fire people who are happy to tar bait people based on allegations. You
Mhm.
know the argument. I've seen it 1,000 times before. Just because the court didn't find it, and just because the police didn't investigate, didn't mean it didn't happen. And to quote Monty Python again, what chance does that give me? You get accused of that. When someone's accused of something that they didn't do. When they're accused of something, there's two possibilities. One, they're found guilty, at which point they're guilty, or they're found not guilty, at which point they are guilty. They just got away with it. And yeah, it's a tar. People are tarred. It's a smear. It's a smear tactic. I'm always blown away that people are willing to believe things on the back of hearing one side of the story, and also amazed that they don't consider how would I like to be accused of something that I didn't do, and people to believe it without actually hearing either side of the story.
Exactly. I tell people there's two sides to the coin. If you hear something off about somebody, go and ask them, get it out of the horse's mouth.
Yeah, and I mean, with me, people say to me sometimes, "Well, how do you know your clients are telling the truth?" It's like, well, okay, I have to work on the principle they're telling the truth because if they are lying to me, they're damaging their own case. And I would rather find out before we get to a hearing rather than sit in court and the other side solicitor present evidence and me to think, if you'd have told me about this, we could have done something to mitigate this, or you could have, no, I could have prepared you to talk about your options. But yeah, allegations. Every single time they do a false allegations, the courts know people make allegations, false
Hmm.
allegations. The court know that. I don't. Like I said, I struggle to think of any case that I've done where there've not been allegations of some kind. There have to be allegations. If there are no allegations, how could you possibly justify a child seeing a parent?
Exactly. It's totally weaponized. It's a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And like I say, there's no downside. There's absolutely no downside to making false allegations.
And that's sickening. I mean, that really is.
It is, and over the years, the 18 years that I've worked in family law, and people have railed against this from day one of when I've done it, saying the system will change. I don't think the system will change. I'm a horrible cynic. I get people sending me petitions and saying we must protest and we must raise awareness. And I would say that overall things have slowly gone backwards in terms of family law in the UK at least. And I say to people that the only thing you can do is to actually navigate the system yourself, represent yourself, and learn how to go through the system. I don't think the system's going to change. This is really cynical. I've come across any number of angry men, so it tends to be men, saying, "Well, at least I fight." And I think, well, okay, well done, you're fighting. Give it a couple of years, you'd have got burnt out, you would have walked away, and the system won't have changed. I've seen dozens, if not more, people come and go over the years that are definitely going to be the ones that change the system. They get burnt out and walk away.
It's hard to change something that has been in existence for the last 80 years. You
Oh,
know,
definitely. Sorry, go
uh,
ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that, it just, I get hate mail as well from m males and females, and I can't please everybody, but it's, I'm for parents and shared parenting provided there's no criminal, um, not accusations, but evidence.
No, I mean, people think that if they just fight hard enough, they'll get what they want. The court is optimized to deal with angry people that want to fight, particularly men. It must be a testosterone thing, and they're going to be the one that change the system. And they're not. They end up with an order for no contact with their children, and they end up burnt out, and they end up posting on social media saying to people like me, uh, "You're just no, you're part of the problem. You should be part of the solution. You should be raising awareness." Raising awareness did nothing. You know what? I've known I knew years and years back people to go on huge protests in London, going to the Royal Courts of Justice in London to protest. It changed not a thing. Things that have gone backwards. People need to devote their energy by changing the system from within. And I mean, for example, with fathers, back in the day when fathers typically had contact of every other weekend and midweek contacts, I would say that if fathers really wanted to change things, they want to push things so that eventually the norm is more than that. So that it's not 2 nights every other week, it's 3 nights, and then 4 nights, and then 5 nights, and 6 nights. It's going to be long, slow, and grinding. There's no, I talk about silver bullets. There's no silver bullet about how the system is going to change. There's no silver bullet how your case is going to win. People often think that if I just use this clever piece of case law, the judge is going to say to me, "You're right, Mr. Smith. I'm going to make that order you want." It doesn't work like that. No, the court is not romantic. It's not. No, it's not dramatic. If you believe that you've watched too many episodes of, I don't know, what insert the name of your favorite Hollywood drama into it. It doesn't work like that. People think, I don't know, I'm a big fan of, let's say, Better Call Saul. I would love to go to New Mexico and see that, but I suspect in reality it's bad coffee and awful waiting rooms while you sit there all day waiting to see a judge. No, you get places like the Albuquerque. We get places that are unromantic places like it was at Wolverhampton and Slough, and there were these places where they're dreary 70s buildings, where all it takes is grim determination on the part of the father or the parent going through it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, the one piece of hate mail that I got that came out of nowhere, because really it was my probably my first piece of hate mail that came in 2 weeks ago. Actually, this guy writes to me, Marianne, all you women are exactly the same. You are all sexist, bigoted man haters. And this is what we are going to teach the young men and boys for the next 1,000 years. You women should never have attacked me, and the most certainly you should not have kept up your attacks on me for 17 years. I'm going, who is this person?
Um, he's probably proven his ex's point for her.
Oh,
But what was I saying? It was the best revenge is a life lived well.
yeah.
And this is the thing. No, this is the crazy thing. I see every day on social media women blaming men and men blaming women. You know what? I think that's a really short-sighted way of seeing things. You know what? No, being being a pain in the bum is equally distributed between men and women. There are good men and good women. There are bad men and bad women. It's
Mhm.
nothing to do with gender. There are women that I would trust my life with. There are men I would never trust. And
Uh-huh.
you're reducing people to a gender thing. It's insane. Guys, if you're going for a parenting charity, especially even if you're going for men's rights charity, have a look. How many of the people in it doing most of the work are women? I think that says an indictment more about men than it does about women. Particularly grandmothers when it comes to fathers' charities. The parenting charities I've been involved in, grandmothers were always really, really overrepresented and doing way more than the dads, telling the grandmothers what they should be doing. I would say to anyone that if they're criticizing people like you, all people like me, they're perfectly at liberty to get involved in the whole thing and to help change the system they want to change, the way they change the system.
And I also think, tell me what you think, at least what's going on over there. Um, these judges, I'm sure they're watching these the gender war. They're watching this and they're going, this is great. This is fueling the fire. This is keeping the family court system going. I hope they keep fighting. But if parents would unite and mothers and fathers would say, okay, so everyone's had their differences, but let's work together to try to put the brakes on this family court system, I think there would be a lot more change.
To be honest, I don't think there's anything wrong with the law in the UK. The Children Act's a good piece of law. It's the way it's implemented. And to be fair to the judges, I can tell they're getting lots of training. The younger judges, particularly, are much better, and they are trying various things to actually to actually improve the system. But the elephant in the room are things like false allegations, are things like not enforcing their own orders. That's something else happens. The courts just don't enforce their own orders in this country. Uh, people will say to me, people will say to me, "What's the point of a court order if the court doesn't enforce it?" And I will say, "Good question." And they will say, "You're the first solicitor that admits it." And I say, "Look, I'm not a solicitor." But if we are going to change the system, I think that's on parents. Parents need to be disciplined. They need to be organised. They need, if it's a dad, not to get angry. When it comes to false allegations, they need to basically not get into the habit of rebutting allegations. Honestly, I get people every day that will spend all their time fighting me about how they're going to have to fight against these allegations. And I'll say, you're not going to help your case. Give you a classical illusion. I was it Cassandra. I will tell them what's going to happen if they do things and they don't believe me. And then it happens, and then I have to console them and say, I'm really sorry that happened. Where I wanted to say, I told you this was going to happen. The system is flawed.
Mhm.
It can be navigated. It is flawed, but no one's going to change the system. There's no cavalry. The system's not going to change. We need to change the way we work. But the good news is we can change the way we work and we can have input into it.
And that's what I agree with you. Um, I personally would like to see family court totally abolished over here.
I don't know what you'd replace it with.
Civil court. Well, see, we have civil court, and that way a parent could have a jury, and perhaps this would cut going back to court 40 times.
Yeah, so I mean, if I was put in charge, a couple of things I would like to see. I would like to see in more cases a reversal of residence. So if you've got two parents and they're expected to co-parent a child and one parent refuses, they'll say to the parent that one co-parent, well, maybe your child will see both parents if we reverse residence. I would also go for meaningful enforcement. I would go for that. What I suspect will happen if they did that is parents will play the same game of making false allegations, hoping that mud will stick, and turn it back into the zero-sum game it was before.
Mhm.
A lot of people are not child focused. And that's a really sad thing to say.
Right. I don't think family court is child focused because of the money.
The money, well, this is why I'm a big advocate for people representing themselves. I mean, I would say about 80% of people can do a great job of representing themselves.
Right.
And people say, well, I need a solicitor to do it properly. But they never
Mhm.
consider the question, well, what happens when I run out of money halfway through my case? I don't know about the US, but in this country, if you've got a solicitor and you run out of money, the solicitor is entitled to hang on to your paperwork until you've paid your bill. That's not much fun if you've got a case running.
Yeah, that's not right.
It's a deeply flawed system. I think we probably disagree a bit on why it's flawed. I think, to be honest, parents make their own life difficult. And like I say, I'm a dad. I went through the family courts. I know exactly how hard it is, but people make their own lives more difficult. It is hampered, of course, by the fact that the courts are chronically underfunded. Actually, I need to do a bit of research on that. How long is the average case? I think it was about 18 months for a private law case in this country. Uh, I think it's getting longer and longer to get into courts. And I think I think courts are being shut. I'm sure when I checked recently, more and more of the smaller courts are being shut and they're consolidating them. if you go to court in London, there used to be lots of little courts, and now there's a few big courts dotted around different parts of London.
Wow. Yeah, that I don't know what to say. This is just it's just bad all the way around. And, you know, I don't know how to advise people to protect themselves against a false allegation. I don't know if you have any ideas. I mean, I could talk to you all the rest of the afternoon, but I won't keep you
How,
much longer.
how are you protecting yourself against false allegations? You can't. Because I tell you what, anyone can make an allegation up at any point. And it doesn't matter what you do or say, it can be twisted. It can be an allegation that twists something that did happen, or it can be something that's plucked out of the air. There's no way you can prevent someone making a false allegation. All you can do is basically deal with it after it's happened. And I would say to deal with it, if it's by and large radio silence, and that's radio silence with the other side, apart from their solicitor, if you have to deal with them. Radio silence on social media, don't engage at all. When it comes to the court, you rebut the allegation. Don't waste time or energy or effort. Your ex will always have more than one allegation than you can actually rebut. So you just cut it and just say didn't happen.
Mhm, mhm.
I would say that once you have had allegations against you, that's when you're looking at evidence. And again, that's hard because how do you prove a negative? But this is why once you've had an allegation, you protect yourself to make sure that you're not facing anything more. So you, like I say, radio silence. You don't contact your accuser. You
Right.
don't go to your home if that's the case. If you're in trouble with the police, you make sure you stick to the bail conditions, because if you do get rearrested, then it makes you the fact you're going to be charged much more likely. It's hard. You can't protect yourself against allegations. All you can do is rebut them.
So then, what do we teach our young people, our 16, 17, 18-year-olds coming up and teaching them about false allegations? It's so scary out there. And
I don't know. I genuinely, I'm not going to get an answer from it. I don't know. I mean, I can't think of a practical answer because I know that anyone can have an allegation made against them at any moment. It's absolutely tragic. And this is the thing, this is the awful thing. Once you've started the ball rolling with an allegation, if someone makes an allegation, they're going to run with it. They're going to have to double down on it, because there comes into a point where you can't. What are you going to say? Everything I've said up to now is not true, or I exaggerate that bit. I know you got arrested. I know you got arrested, but it got out a bit out of hand. You can't do that. People double down. People go in with both feet. The lie gets bigger and bigger and snowballs bigger and bigger, because the last thing you can do is say, especially to a judge, all the stuff I've said to you up to now, judge, it was a lie. I had no good reason for it. You're not going to say that to your friends. You're not going to say to your friends that are invested in you and believed you and supported you for the things you've said, because that way your friends are rightly going to say, well, I was deceived. So you're going to have to run those allegations more and more. If you're on the receiving end of the allegations, we're talking damage limitation here, Streisand effects. You don't want to be getting involved in running battles online. You don't want to get involved in running battles in court. Silence where at all possible. The only reason you're rebutting it in court is for the sake of the court, so the court has got a record that you disagree, because it can be interpreted as your silence as agreement. Aside from that, say nothing. Hardest thing you're going to do in the world. Absolute hardest thing you're going to do in the world. It's not fair. It's not just. It's a natural inclination with any human being to want to clear their name. And
Mhm.
if your ex is putting their side against you, it's natural to want to be able to put your side back as well. Advice for young people? I don't know. It's not a nice situation.
I agree. Well, I totally appreciate you coming on. How can people reach you if they have any questions?
Usual website, familylawAssistance.co.uk.
Okay, and I'll put that in the podcast notes.
I think I've got over 250 blog posts answering every question that everyone's ever asked me, or hopefully that, and redoing the blog posts all the time. Also, my TikTok channel, Family Law Stephen. I've got 24,000 followers now. I've got quite a few followers from the US. I can't really answer legal questions on the US. There are a couple of attorneys that I'll tag in that I know are quite good, but I will be able to help you with things like conduct, just general things that are law based, but general conduct based. Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, don't jump off, okay?
Thank you.
Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms even I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Stephen Wade, for coming on from the UK. Thank you.
Thank you.